Actually, I didn't like that, but I'm going to try something else. And I think it's much better to do that than maybe to stay too in one area. Keep it simple.
Yeah, and if it's simple, it's repeatable. It's something that's part of your life. And there's probably a lot more behavior changes you've made over the years that have now just become the norm and you're not even really thinking about it.
The thing that really stuck with me is that impact that we could have. So every business or student that we helped become an entrepreneur would go on to have an impact.
Today's conversation is about the power of pre-orders and how the smart strategy is drastically reducing surplus in the consumer world. We're going to unpack how Flare is leading this change, transforming the way we think about and engage with our purchases. We're going to explore the ripple effects of pre-ordering and how that helps accurately gauge demand, it minimizes waste, and is fostering a more sustainable and conscious approach to our production and consumption. Brace yourselves for an enlightening discussion on how pre-orders are not just beneficial for businesses, but are pivotal in collective quest for a sustainable future. So tune in and be inspired.
My story started during school, where I joined this thing called Young Enterprise, and that was my first real taste of what starting a business was like. The business that we wanted to do was very much we wanted to create phone cases and sell them to people, and in order to do that we needed to raise a bit of money. So what we did was we bought some sweets and we sold them at a fireworks event, and we ended up making more money from selling the sweets at the fire event than from the actual business. But what it did is showed us that actually we should make something that people want and not just make something that we thought was cool. So did that during school, and then during university did another business, which was setting up an accelerator program. And so one of the things that we saw was we had all of these amazing students at different universities, but there was not really a way for them to connect and form teams and set up their own businesses. So we built a program which connected students from different backgrounds and degrees to start their own companies and then build their own companies during university. And so I think just along the way, started to build these small businesses. And the thing that really stuck with me is that impact that we could have. So every business or student that we helped become an entrepreneur would go on to have an impact with their business, with all of the people that they would impact, a bit like kind community. And so that butterfly effect was super, super powerful. And from there, it was really just doing things that we thought could help make other people's lives better. And that's kind of led to the journey today.
Awesome. That's interesting because not everyone, I guess, starts out with thinking that they're going to go and build something for their own or sell something or become an entrepreneur. I think that many people think about doing good in school, going to college or uni, then getting a good job and having a career. So what I guess gave you the flavor for being entrepreneurial? Was it something that you'd seen in the movies? Tell me about that thought process, because I don't think that's particularly normal.
I think when I was going through school and uni, I kind of didn't see myself as an entrepreneur. My parents weren't entrepreneurs. I still felt like I wasn't selling sweets or something as an 8-year-old in the school playground. So I was like, I can't be an entrepreneur. I'm not built that way. And then I think over time, I pursued both. So I went down the finance and the corporate route and my studies and focused on that, but then also had these side projects of various different entrepreneurial things. And I think there was two things that was important to me. I was like, if I continue down the path that I'm on, is that where I'd like to be in 5-10 years time? And I looked at the senior people in the corporate ladder and I was like, that's amazing and for them and they're achieving some of their goals, but is that something that I would feel fulfilled by if I got to that position? The answer for me was no. And then the second thing was just, what was the impact that I was having? And in corporate world, there is a lot of impact, but also there's a lot of just kind of moving money from one big company to another big company. And for me, it was more about how can we empower people? How can we make their lives better? How can we work to make the environment better? And usually it involved a new solution that hadn't been brought to the world before. And to do that within a corporate is also really hard. And so to me, the best way I thought we could make a change was actually starting something from scratch and bringing it to the world. So yeah, those are some of the reasons.
Oh, very cool. So you're in this accelerator, and you created the accelerator with the uni.
Yeah, with a few
Other students decided to create an accelerator to help other students create businesses.
Mhm.
Was that a business in itself? Did you monetize that accelerator program? How were you surviving, I guess? Like, were you still selling sweets? Like, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure out that gap, right? Because there's a bit there where you're like, oh yeah, this was cool. I really did this, but I want to know that, like, were you actually charging people for the accelerator? Were there any like notable wins from that accelerator program as well?
Yeah, so we weren't charging. We very much saw it as another society, like a university society. And the way that we funded it was we had sponsors. So we worked with PwC and brought PwC employees in as mentors. We partnered with Wyra, who were an accelerator program themselves, and we used their office space to host our sessions and raise sponsorship alongside that. So at the end of the program, each student business would pitch to VCs, and so there was an interest from VCs to also be sponsors as well. So I think for us, it was just building an ecosystem, allowing people to fail in a safer environment, but also to take that leap and connect with other people. Yeah, and the big wins was it's still going today. It's expanded. So we started with LSE, Imperial, and UCL, and then we expanded to more universities, and now it's in Hong Kong and different cities. So it's just amazing to see how that's grown over time.
Wow. Are there any startups that have like spun off from the accelerator that maybe some of us would know about, or are there any ones that you want to share a story about?
Not that many that come to mind. I think the goal was less about maybe someone coming out of it and creating like this unicorn billion-dollar business, and more just giving people the opportunity within university to experience what it's like. So for a lot of the people at LSE, which is where I studied, the focus was very much going down that corporate route. And there's a bit of a herd effect where if you see all your friends going down that route, then you're also like, oh, am I missing something? And so for us, the mission was very much giving people an opportunity to understand, okay, actually, you know what, there's so much more out there, and there's so much more I can do. And it might be great for me, it might not be, but this is an opportunity for me to try.
I love that. I often feel, I feel like that when I get asked to go into universities and speak about my journey. Like I dropped out of uni. I quit after the first year because I was studying pharmaceutical science, and then I was like, this is not actually for me. Which is, firstly, you go up against like your entire family going, what the heck, you're mad. But now when I go into these universities, I don't tell them to quit uni. I just no, yeah. So I don't predominantly just tell them that, because most of the time they don't listen. You've got to help them discover that on themselves. So I plant these little seeds, give them a little flavor of what the possibilities are that's not part of this herd mentality, right? So I really like that. So good on you for building that out and giving, the future leaders of this world an opportunity to discover things that, or like discover things, steep learning lessons that wouldn't otherwise be appropriate in a university lecturing setting. I think it's very exciting. And I don't think there's many other ways of learning so quickly than actually like running your own business. So fair play. Okay, you're running this accelerator, then you graduate. What then? What happened between then and starting Flare?
Yeah. So after graduating, I worked at Bank of America for a few years, and that's where I was running a lot of forecasting and operations for various different companies, including the consumer and retail space. And one of the biggest challenges I saw there was we were super reliant on historical data. So every single decision that was being made in the supply chain was all based on extrapolations using historical data. And the challenge here was that those data points were wrong 30 to 40% of the time, and sometimes 50%. So companies were pretty much getting their actuals and their forecasts wrong half the time. And the challenge there was not only was there a financial cost, so huge impacts, make it super challenging for a business, there's also the environmental side. So most businesses would typically overproduce to make sure that they didn't miss out on sales. And of course, like there's only so much longer we can continue overproducing in the supply chains. Like retail activities now produce 25% of global emissions. And so for us, we saw, okay, this is something that we got to change. And that's how we then got started Flare.
All right, so you're looking at this data and you were like, wow, I'm gonna try to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
What were the things that were like severely jumping out? Was there a certain industry type? Was there certain data that you saw? Because it's not saying, because I'm just thinking like the numbers you're seeing wouldn't necessarily give you images of heaps of piles of trash, or were you kind of connecting the dots? Like what did you see that gave you enough opportunity to go, oh, I'm gonna quit my job and start something?
Yeah, so I think it was breaking it down into like two areas. So where we looked at smaller businesses, the main way that they would decide what to produce and what to order and what to store and etc. was usually guesswork or some kind of spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And so it was super painful, but also like not the best solution. And then at the same time, if you go all the way up to the enterprise businesses, they just have, instead of one spreadsheet, it's like 7 or 20 spreadsheets. And so again, it wasn't the best solution for them, super painful. And so really then we started to dive deeper and we were like, well, what's been happening? Like, how has this solution been evolving over time? And what most people have tried to do is they've tried to make the model more complex. So they'll just have more and more spreadsheets or more variables, but the results wouldn't necessarily change. And we thought, actually, if we go back to first principles and think, well, what's the missing piece here? Is actually what is the data input versus the model. And so we thought, actually, there's a way we can change the data that we're using. And the way that we do that is by empowering more choice from a consumer perspective.
Amazing. Okay, so can you give us an insight into actually what Flare does and how is that going to positively impact people and planet?
Yeah. So what Flare does is we allow shoppers to order products for any date in the future. So people can say, they can go to a website and they can order it right now, or they can say, hey, I've got a gift or a birthday or Christmas or anything coming up. They can place that order for that date. And so then instead of businesses having to rely just on their historical data, they can tap into real order data for future and then use that to then be much more lean in their operations and supply chain.
Yeah, I think that is incredible. I mean, it's crazy for me to think sometimes when I was working with some of the fashion brands, like the whole fashion space, not all of it, because there's obviously better businesses these days, but predominantly 99% of the whole fashion industry is we're going to try and predict what people are going to buy a year in advance. They do spring, summer, autumn, winter was the 2 seasons that people used to produce garments for. And now it's like literally every other week. But they would try and create all these ranges, these lines that they would then present on a fashion show, which then go to market and reach the consumer maybe a year later, at least 6 months. I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone that can predict the future. So then they would like, well, we could create, I guess their assumptive was like, we've just now created all these lines. We need people to buy them, otherwise we'll go out of business. So then they spend a huge, vast amount of money, excuse me, to make you believe that you need to buy this product that they made and designed maybe years ago. And it's all spun up that way, and you're going to miss out. You know, people aren't going to find you attractive. You're not going to look the right, like the right type of figure. They make you believe this thing, and that's systemic. It's been around for years and years and years. And then they produce so much, so they hope that they sell that much, and then oftentimes it doesn't sell. So then it goes somewhere. Some businesses tell you they recycle it. Some people say it goes to the resale market. But what happens is the stuff that isn't good goes to the charity shops because it's not good and no one bought it the first time round. Fewer people buy it the second time round. Then it goes to a different shop that takes it and it gets in the system. No one buys it again. And then it gets shipped off to faraway countries for them to deal with it like it's a gift or something from the Western world. And this most of the time made of plastic, which makes it even worse. So if you can tell a brand, right, here's 100 customers that bought this jacket for the 20th of November, just make that much. Imagine the cost saving, the planning, the materials, marketing spend, because spent it, like you've got the customer already. I think that's remarkable. So how did you actually go about building this thing? So you said, yeah, okay, we can get customers to buy in the future. How did you actually make it happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think ultimately it came to, we went through our whole network of like friends of friends of friends, and we were just looking for a brand that would take a chance on us. And then we had a friend of a friend who knew a chocolate brand in Yorkshire called Coco Joe's, and they're a small, like, family-run chocolate business. And we said, hey, we've got this idea, like, if your customers could order ahead, and you get a small discount. So the more you plan ahead, the more reward you get on the product. So trying to encourage positive spending habits. Is this something that you would try? And he was like, yes. I get customers that ask me, can I order this for like Christmas or for birthdays?
Yeah.
And so we built this on Wix. We built an integration on the product page that allowed customers to do this. And we launched it in August 2022. And then by November, we had 60% of orders coming through Flare. And we were like, wow, okay, this is cool. Because now beforehand, there'd be this massive spike in demand in the Christmas time, and he'd have like staff running around, like not enough ingredients. Everything would just be a nightmare. And he had all this visibility ahead of time. And so it was like really, really cool. And then particularly in food and beverages, where a lot of the ingredients are perishable, like the milk products, the butter, etc. And so, yeah, from there we were like, okay, this is interesting. And then Wix had a few limitations from a technical perspective, so we decided to focus on the Shopify space. So then we built out the version on Shopify. We onboarded new brands within beauty, homeware, fashion, sports and outdoors, and then slowly just started to grow our customer base.
It's interesting you said about Wix versus Shopify. I remember I built my first website and it was on, it was like WordPress or something. And then we did Wix and I was like, this is tough. And the equals wasn't that great. So then Shopify came along and it just made everything so much smoother. Out of the box, you can make money almost within like a day if you have all the content ready. But interesting. So 60% of that chocolate brand's customers were buying in advance of any date in the future. So I guess that they were planning Valentine's, Easter, Christmas, like big events when you would usually consume chocolate.
Yeah.
For me, it'd be every weekend. But they were able to then plan ahead on the exact amount of ingredients they could buy ahead of a certain purchasing period of time, which firstly, the level of reduction in stress would be worth it anyway.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So how do you actually make money then? Like, is it a percentage of the fee that you spend? Like, how are you serving your clients?
Yeah. So the way we see ourselves, or how we make money, is we have these two like amazing communities. We have shoppers who like forward thinking, eco-conscious. They want to save a bit of money on the products that they're buying. And so we have that community. And then we have the brands that we work with who are also amazing. And for them, they get to give a better experience to their customers. They increase sales by giving more choice to their customers. They benefit from a cash flow perspective, benefit from a margin perspective, from cost savings. And so we see ourselves connecting these two communities. And so the way that we make money is we charge a percentage on the transactions that we process. And so what it means is that businesses are winning, shoppers are winning, and then we're in the middle allowing it all to happen.
Okay, great. Like normal transaction fee, like the payment gateway would normally charge. Very interesting. Or like your subscription model. Mm-hmm. How business community approach the aspect of consumers wanting it now? There is big flow of people wanting something now. Like, it's a pain point. I want it now. How have you found certain things that work well, or are you still trying to figure that out? Like, how do you get the everyday consumer planning ahead? Or is it just literally the case that if it's offered, they generally take it?
Yeah, this is a really topical question, because what it means is that while we're trying to have an amazing impact, we can't do it on our own. Like, brands have to take a leap of faith, and then typically they see the results, and then equally shoppers do as well. And so what we see so far in like the early adopters from a shopper perspective is some value choice. So we have people buying for weddings, we have people going for gifts, birthdays, and actually they don't necessarily want the product just sitting around in their home for like the next few weeks or months. So that's usually the first reason. The second reason is saving money. At the moment, things are super expensive. And if you can save a little bit of money on your product, then everyone wins. And then the third is sustainability. So a lot of the brands that we work with are focused on sustainability. And this is like an actual tangible way where you can say, hey, me partnering with my customers will allow me to have more visibility on demand, which will allow me to save waste, will allow me to cut emissions in logistics. And as a reward for that, this is choice, or this is the saving that I'm giving you. And so shoppers do value that as well. They value that action being taken. And so those are like usually the three reasons we see. And how we see that changing over time is people are making more purchase decisions based on sustainability. So they'll buy from a brand if they truly believe that they care about the planet. And so over time we see that growing, and we see therefore the easiness of shoppers buying into this as a buying things in the future as growing as a trend.
Perfect. Can you expand a little bit more about some of the impact that you're making? Either if it's a particular brand that have seen an amount of impact that they're measuring by adopting Flare, or a cumulative, if you have that data.
Yeah. We see like a couple different areas. The first is from a sales perspective, which I think is important because what we see is it's driving market share away from, say, these bigger brands like the ASOS's to the more smaller sustainable brands who are doing more meaningful things. There's a sales increase because you're giving your customers more choice. So say, for example, someone wanted to buy a gift, they wanted it in 2 months' time. Traditionally, they might leave the website and then not come back, whereas now you get to secure that customer today. There's a cash flow benefit, so you get cash in the door earlier, which is really helpful because a lot of businesses, particularly sustainable businesses, have long lead times. It can be like 7 or 8 months. And so what that means is the business isn't getting cash for that period of time, which can restrict your future growth and things like that. And also as a founder. And so getting cash is also helpful. And then the third is the cost save element. So what we do is we map out what that demand looks like, these secured orders that you've got over time. And then we determine what your purchase orders are over time as well. And then we say, if you place this purchase order, it would allow you to close that gap as much as possible so that you're minimizing your excess while also not having the risk of going sold out.
Yeah.
So we map out all that data so that you know what your demand is across all your different SKUs, and then what is the optimal purchase order that you should be making.
I love that. Okay, amazing. A couple of things just kind of really clicked for me from my own experiences. Like that, having the ability to know how much to order from our suppliers, etc., accumulating that together so you get a better price is super valuable. Now, what I'm interested that you're primarily focused on a B2B play at the moment, where you allow your brands to serve consumers. What I'm about is the B2B play. Like, imagine serving a business that allows another business to pre-order in advance. Like I'm thinking about my days of Liquid Proof, where Office Shoes would place an order for 20,000 units, and they expect us to deliver it in like 2 weeks, right? Just because they're big and they think they can. And I would be like going back and forth, negotiating, saying, hey, okay, look, if you wait an extra week, it allows me to also buy and produce the same amount of product with one of our other providers, meaning it's just a lot easier to produce it in one go, right? Is there a B2B on your roadmap, or is it available now?
There is a B2B on the roadmap. It kind of comes into like how we started to think about the problem, and we thought everything starts with the consumer and then works its way along. Or you can start, if you imagine the supply chain, you can start at one end, but it makes logical sense to like move across it rather than starting in the middle and then moving in one or the other direction.
Right.
Like a good analogy is if you imagine just turned up to the airport and were like, this is where I want to fly. And then imagine what it would be like for the airlines to try and like manage that logistically, capacity, knowing where people are going. It'd be like a complete nightmare. And then imagine every single other business that relates to the airline. So the like luggage transportation companies, the fueling companies, all would be in a similar logistical nightmare. And so what flights have done is that you allow people to where they want to go, when they want to go ahead of time. And the earlier you do that, the more you save. So that consumer behavior is there. And that's what we're doing, is we're saying, hey, actually, you know what? We can bring this to the e-commerce space. There's huge, huge efficiency savings and follows along that path. So we help the airlines, which is the brands, we connect them with their consumers more closely, and then we move along and use that data along the supply chain. So we can say, hey, logistic companies, you don't have to worry about that massive peak anymore because it's much, much smoother. Or manufacturing companies, these are what all of your different retailers want at different points in time. And so this is how we can help you better manage your manufacturing process. And then just moving along and having an impact throughout that chain.
Yeah, very cool. If we can get to a point where 90% of our purchases are made in advance planning, I see like no waste. There's no surplus because they put their hand up saying, I want a black t-shirt. 100,000 people of us buy black t-shirts, then we know that we need to make and ship out 100,000 black t-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
It really makes sense, right? Very interesting. I think the only thing that I see is maybe like a bit of friction is we're all subscribed to, not I say that actually, not all of us, but I think many people are subscribed to this always on digital world with social media. Like everything is like right here, right now. I see what others have now and I want it now. And Amazon have brought in this whole piece around 2-hour delivery windows. And that's been hugely successful for that space. I would love to see and explore ways of us collectively figuring out how do we educate that consumer away from to serve their desires too soon, too quickly, when maybe they don't even need it. Like realistically, like stop trying to buy things to impress people you don't even know.
Yeah,
I think that would be amazing. But then obviously on the back there are businesses that serve customers. They're providing value and plan it out. Amazing. Do you have a bit of advice that you would give to someone coming into the real world? Maybe whether they're graduating, whether they just dropped out of school, whether they're what would be a piece of advice that you'd give to them, or would you give them a bit of advice to steer clear of?
Oh, okay. I received this advice from someone else, and I thought it was one of the best ways to find what you do love is by trying lots of things and finding what you don't like. And I do believe in that. I think it's be open-minded and explore lots of things, and then really just use that as a way to say, hey, you know what? Actually, I didn't like that, but I'm going to try something else. And I think it's much better to do that than maybe to stay too like in one area. And so, yeah, that's at least something that I tried to do, both like within work and outside of work. And I love it. I just encourage people to, try new things and don't necessarily follow the crowd too much, because I think there's a lot of beauty in being able to bring something unique and creative to the world.
Yeah, and I think your journey has been a bit of that, right? You've helped others as well try that buffet of life and see if they like the chilies or not, you know? How do you know if you don't like chilies without trying it? Very interesting. To riff off of that, I think there's also a bit of advice that is, you're going to try things and it's not going to be nice. It's not going to be comfortable to begin with. Like when everyone starts the first time, you're awful at it, right? Think like a baby walking, fell over, and then wasn't like, this ain't for me. They get up and they try again and they go and they try to find it, right? So when you're trying something new, expect that you're going to be awful at it. But what you can find is once you get through that uncomfortable piece, things start to become easier, it becomes more enjoyable, and you could actually create something that you end up loving. So I see it as, let's see, and maybe you don't find your purpose, or the purpose can be crafted by sticking at something for a long enough amount of time to get good at it, to then start enjoying it. that you then love it and it becomes your purpose and your mission. What's been one of your biggest failures or like your favorite failures?
Biggest failures, favorite failures. Okay, I'll tell this one. So one other element of Flare is, so my co-founder spent a lot of time in embedded finance, so as a sort of software engineer. And one of the big frustrations he had was the rise of buy now, pay later, like driving people into impulsive spending habits, driving people into credit. And when we came together as a team, one thing we wanted to do is reverse or create a fintech that actually helped people positively with their spending habits. So that's the element of rewarding people for planning ahead was very much the anti-Klarna, the anti-buy now, pay later. And I think the area where we both connected on that was when I was at Bank of America, one of the startups or projects that I did was to help students with their student loans. And so what I did was I built this like model which people could plug in all of their student loans that they got during their studies and then work out, does it make sense for me to repay, or should I leave it and let it be wiped? What is the interest? And if I am repaying, how much should I be repaying so that I can minimize the size of my student loan? And I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing. It was one of those other ideas where I was like, okay, this is going to really help people. And then I tried to sell it. Not even sell it. I tried to give it for free to my brother, plugged in all of his numbers. He was a medic, so he had a big student loan. And I was like, okay, this is going to save you so much interest. And I couldn't get any of my friends interested. They're like, it's a future problem. I'll worry about it later. Even though like the difference could be 30, 40,000 pounds in interest, which is quite a lot. But yeah, take it to America. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's a second-hand, that's a Tesla.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a solar panel. That's 2 sets of solar panels.
It is a lot of money. But yeah, so this was one of those products where I was like, this could be for people, but it was really challenging to get people to use it. I tried all my student friends, and there wasn't that much interest.
Because you're talking about like a future pain, like almost an invisible pain, and like people want to solve their problems right now today, even though that is a problem to solve today.
Yeah,
the actual pain is way in advance.
Yeah,
so they're not feeling it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's invisible. Like it's something that is like hard to really put down. It'd be interesting to see how many people actually, when you run numbers and present it to them, they'll be like, "Whoa, okay, that is £40,000 that I could be saving."
Yeah.
Did anyone go like? So no one. So then what happened? So you just was like.
Then it just like it
died.
Yeah, it died. It died sadly. It could be revived. So it's still there, but yeah, it was very much a learning around.
I thought it was going to go a lot worse. I thought you were going to be like, I started helping people pay back their loans.
Oh no, no.
What did you learn from that?
I learned that try and solve what people care about today. Having said that, I'm still very much for solving problems for people which they don't see as problems until later. And to some extent, we did doing that with Flare. Like a lot of the challenges businesses run into as a result of the problem that we're solving for comes later. So like you've run out of cash. Oh, like that happens like 3 months later. Or you produce too much and you can't sell it. Oh, that's happened later. The sales benefit is something that's more present. So we try and balance both. But it's very much trying to find a way to say, hey, this is going to solve a problem for you today, and it's also going to solve a problem for you in the future. Let's like reduce that risk. But yeah, very much is still part of what we're trying to solve, or see at least.
I appreciate it. Daniel, is there a certain leader, investor, celebrity, or a figurehead that you're subscribed to, and why?
Yeah, I would say there's not really a particular reason. So I really like Chris Martin of Coldplay. I also like Jim Carrey. They're not the guys that are giving motivational speeches per se every week, but I've just really kind of followed how they are as people. So like Chris Martin is just one of the most down-to-earth guys. Like during the pandemic, he was doing all these video like music sessions. And I just saw like the amount of joy he brought to other people. It was really, really powerful through his music and something that he's very passionate about. And then similarly, Jim Carrey is like, whenever he talks about his purpose, he's like, my purpose is to make people laugh, like to make people feel happier. And I just thought it was just like super nice. It's just like at the end of the day, it's like you can help businesses, but we're all people and we all care about each other. We all care about like where we live, and I just found it really powerful. Like as simply as it is, it's just making people happier and bringing more joy.
Yeah, it's a good ethos to stand by, right, and subscribe to. Have you made certain sustainable behavior changes, habit swaps that you've really enjoyed and you want to share with us today?
Yeah, I don't know if I do anything specific. I just try to buy from sustainable companies, like the t-shirts and things, or like sustainable cotton.
How are you discovering them?
I just typed in like sustainable t-shirt company. I was like, this is actually really cool. Like it's got some cool designs on the back. And then I try and like minimize food waste. Like I try and just buy what I need and then use it as well as I can. I got my ocean bottle from our ocean event. Yeah, I don't really buy too much, to be honest. Just have like a couple things in my wardrobe, and that's about it. Nothing too insightful.
No,
but it's just keep it simple.
Yeah, if it's simple, it's repeatable. It's something that's part of your life, and there's probably a lot more behavior changes you've made over the years that have now just become the norm, and you're not even really thinking about it, which is interesting. Kind leadership mean to you?
Kind leadership. Well, other than Kind being an awesome community, so kudos to you for putting it together. Kind leadership, for me, I think the biggest scene working in the corporate world was what I didn't like about like leaders or culture. And we worked like 16, 17-hour days. It was very, very hierarchical. There were benefits, but at least I saw like what is the type of culture that I wouldn't want to have in our team. And then we also spend a lot of time on like what are the things we do value, like ambition, like mission, being mission driven, working hard, having fun. So yeah, kind leadership for me is just saying what are the things that we feel are important as a team, and how can we continue to encourage that in ourselves and also to other people as we grow the team. Yeah, just kind of being kind.
Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate it, Daniel. Thanks.